What's going on, everybody? Mark here with Mark's Outdoors, and today it's not a hunting video, it's not a fishing video, but it is game related. We'll be doing some cooking, aka making some jerky out of goose. So I know a lot of people struggle when they harvest a goose or somehow obtain it, and I've heard a lot of bad stories on people trying goose or trying to cook it or whatnot, and it doesn't turn out the way that they like it. So I think now that I'm locked in at college right now, and I'm gonna try, and every time I try and make myself a meal, I'm gonna try and just hopefully incorporate a video to you guys. I don't make big meals or anything, but they're quick, they're simple, and sometimes just like this one, you're having meals on the go. I mean, who doesn't like food in the blind and stuff like that? So for this recipe, I'll go in depth about how I cut the goose, how thick it is, marinade, how long we're going to be putting it on a dehydrator, so how long on the dehydrator. But yeah, other than that, let's get into it. Alrighty guys, so this is it in the dehydrator, but for now I'm just going to go in depth about how I was cutting it. So as you can see, it's not that thick. You don't want it too thin or too thick, because if you do it too thick, it'll still be raw in the middle, even with dehydrating it and stuff on a dehydrator. But that's only for extreme circumstances. Too thin, it just turns out like one hard piece of cardboard basically, and it's all seasoning and like no moisture or anything, and it's not too good. But the reason that how I should say I got it to this thickness is it's pretty hard to do by hand. I'd recommend that if you know somebody with a deli slicer or something like that, trying to get a hold of them and see if you can borrow it or something and slice it up. Now, when you go to slice up your goose, they will slide everywhere. So what I did is I threw them in my freezer and just hardened them up to where they're hard in your hand but not totally frozen to where the slicer can't get through it, and it makes everything a lot, and I mean a boatload, easier to slice your goose. So I highly recommend that. Alright, once you have your goose sliced, I just use 1 gallon Ziploc bags. That's what this recipe is made for. It's made for about 4 to 5 pounds. You could probably do 3 if you really wanted to. I wouldn't go over 5 because then you're probably going to have to put some into another bag. But I just use gallon Ziploc bags. I just throw it all in a bag. Well, I'll put the marinade in the bowl, mix it all in the bowl first, and then I'll throw it in the gallon bag with all my goose. You can do it in layers, however you want. I just throw it all together. So for the recipe itself, let's see. I have, like I said, about 5 pounds of goose. Your marinade will come out to about a quarter of a gallon, and then 5 pounds of goose will get you about to the top. I'll put in 3 tablespoons of salt. I wouldn't use sea salt because it's kind of pretty big, so just your regular table salt will do, or coarse salt is fine. This is a peppered style beef jerky, so I should have specified that earlier, but that's what it is. So it's peppered. It's not spicy. It's not your teriyaki. It's not sweet. So it's a little sweet. I'd say it's a mix of both worlds. But so you got your 5 pounds of goose, 3 tablespoons of salt, 1 cup of brown sugar. Brown sugar is just better than regular sugar because of the molasses and all that, everything in it. 1 cup of water, about 3/4 of a cup of soy sauce, 1/4 cup teriyaki sauce, 3/4 of a cup Worcestershire sauce, 2 tablespoons of garlic powder, 2 tablespoons chili powder, 4 tablespoons of coarse pepper. Again, same thing with the salt. You want it smaller grains. You don't want it orange. That's why it's coarse. Now, this is optional. I have never done it with less than a tablespoon, so I don't know how it turned out without them, but I know they add a lot of kick when they spread out on the goose when you lay them out on the dehydrator. But I like to add 2 tablespoons of red pepper flakes. Sometimes I'll make it 3 to make it a little bit more hotter. Sometimes I'll bring it down to 1 if I know I'm going to give it away to somebody that doesn't like it as hot. Same thing with the ground pepper. I will lower that a little bit. But I always try and incorporate at least 1 tablespoon in. So it's, again, this whole recipe is all up for you and change. This is just the base that I use and what works for me. So if you try it and you don't like it, try and change it up a little bit if you want. But for me, this is what I like. So as you can see, we have our goose all marinating, full of love and joy right here. You can see the red pepper flakes right spread out through there. This one has just as your 2 tablespoons in it. As you can see, it's dark brown in color because that's from soy sauce, the Worcestershire, teriyaki, all that. So like I said, you're going to get about a quarter of a bag of marinade, and then the rest is going to be goose. It'll fill this bag up pretty good. This is only about 2/3 the way full because I already filled up my dehydrator. You're going to get, if you have a dehydrator like mine is preset to 160 degrees. I will put this on for 7.5 hours, fully loaded with goose, and I will rotate it halfway. But for the marinade, I typically keep it in my refrigerator for about 2 to 3 days. You could probably get away with it with 24 hours. The reason why I like it for 2 to 3 days, especially 3 days, if not a little longer, is because you have a lot of goose in this bag. And but going back to what I was saying is you kind of want to layer the goose when you put in marinade a little bit. Sometimes I just throw it in, but I always flip it in my refrigerator though. So you want to make sure that you evenly spread it on all the goose, and make sure that it's all getting nice and loved by the marinade. So yeah, so you put it in there, and then you just load up your dehydrator, put it on, turn it on, let it run for, like I said, 7.5 hours, flip it, and then once that's up, you got jerky. Now, when you're at the slicing stage and everything, a lot of people try and say take off the silver skin. So on a goose breast, you have the inside of the breast. When you take it out, that won't have any silver skin on it. There will be a little joint back there. That doesn't make too much of a difference, I've noticed. But the silver skin on the outside, what I've noticed is if you have the deli slicer method, you do that, and you start by just taking off 1 or 2 thin slices, you can, as long as that breast is frozen, you can, for the most part, get all the silver skin off by just doing that. You don't have to do any hand work or anything like that. So what I've noticed with goose is, with it being a pretty tough meat, really, again, just depends on how you cook it and prepare it, but it's definitely one of your tougher meats to cook and prepare. When I put it in the dehydrator and it lays on those racks, I do not flip the meat at all. And reason behind that is, here's your finished product. Looks pretty similar to regular jerky that you'd find in the grocery store or whatnot. But here's a piece. You can see the lines from the drying rack, from the dehydrator on this meat. And what I've noticed is you can actually bend it a lot more on those lines, and it becomes a lot more flexible and a lot less tougher when you're eating it. So it's not that hard to get a decent sized piece off of a pretty big piece of goose breast that you dehydrated. So, but it's what works for me. It's what's good. Recipe will be down below. If you guys like it, let me know. Pretty good recipe. I love it. I've been doing it for probably half this quarter of this season now. I wouldn't say quite half, but it's been pretty good. I've been doing it for probably about a month now. So, but yeah, I mean, every time I took it out with the guys or friends or something down hunting, it always got destroyed. So, yeah, till next time.